Shalom, everybody. Today, March 19th, 80 years ago, the Germans, German Nazi government, landed in Hungary. But before I continue, I'd like you to hear something. A musician friend of mine who lives in Hungary made this recording to be played here in a very old synagogue in the town of Győr, G-Y-O-R. It's the town where my father was born. It's the town where my grandparents were deported to Auschwitz from and never to be seen again. Also my father's two sisters. G-Y-O-R, you can Google it. Schindler's List. The violin was Raymond Domby, and also playing the piano was Thomas Mochary. They both live in the town of Győr, G-Y-O-R, and they're both members of the Győr Philharmonic. And they were kind enough to make this recording for me for this occasion. I'm very grateful for suffering. I say suffering, but he says suffering. You say tomatoes, I say tomatoes. Thank you for hosting us, and please come open the program. Rabbi.
You know, first of all, thank you, Mr. Geiger, and to everyone involved for the Mench Award. There are very few people in the world that could say that they've had a bigger impact on the Los Angeles Jewish community and world Jewry, for that matter, than Rabbi and Rabbi Hier. And it has to start somewhere. And we know for Rabbi Hier, the Rebbitzin goes back to the Vancouver days. But here in Los Angeles, the countless students and alumni that have turned into Menches, have molded into Menches because of Rabbi Hier and Rabbi Hier, make it the most appropriate location for this recognition of the Mensch Award. Both you and the Rebbitzin should have Arichat Yamim, should have good health, should have long health, and should continue to be a role model and inspiration for all of us.
As we remember the 80th anniversary of this horrible event of the Hungarian Holocaust, where 600,000 Hungarian Jews were killed out of the 900,000 that were there in Hungary, I'd like you to see something. The film you just saw was a film. It was produced by Andrew Solomon, a Jewish Hungarian film producer who lives in Hungary. He made this film about 15, 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. It's an enactment, but it's an enactment of actual incidents that happened in Budapest in the winter of 1944. My wife, who sits there, her grandmother, was in such a march from her apartment, which was close to the Danube, to be marched into the Danube to be shot in. And she had an inkling of what's going to happen, and somehow she escaped that march and hid in a house there and went back to her apartment, and she survived the war. Any Jew in Hungary who survived the war, including my parents, my father, who survived Mauthausen concentration camp, was by sheer luck. This is not what was planned in Hungary. It was not planned in Poland. It was not planned in France. The extermination of the Jews was very well planned to be carried out throughout Europe that was in any way occupied by Germany. I'll play another clip for you about the invasion of Hungary.
The German invasion of Hungary occurred in 1944. What? I mean, I thought that Hungary and Germany were like allies. Well, they were, and the Hungarians participated in the invasion of the USSR. However, things changed. During two operations, the Germans seized control of Hungary, Operation Marguerite and Operation Panzerfaust. In this video, more about the German invasion of Hungary. The Kingdom of Hungary was the fourth state that signed a tripartite pact on the 27th of September 1940. By that time, two Vienna Wars had taken place in which Hungary recovered a big chunk of the territories the country lost after the First World War. Hungary did take part in the Axis invasion on Yugoslavia, which commenced on the 6th of April 1941. On the 22nd of June 1941, the Germans invaded the USSR. Germany did let Hungary know that Hungarian assistance was welcome. The Hungarian Air Force directed an attack at the Galician town of Stanislav in the early morning on June 27. Ground troops crossed the border at Volovets in the afternoon, as firefights with Soviet border guards had already taken place that morning. And so, Hungary had joined Hitler's crusade. If you want to have a more detailed look on why Hungary joined the Axis and why Hungary joined Hitler's invasion of the USSR, I have more videos on that. See the links in the description. And if you
But I'm very glad that my friend, Holocaust historian Rabbi Michael Barenbaum is here. Michael?
You've just seen Hungarian history. Let me tell you a little bit about Jewish history.
Because I had a wonderful experience, and Rabbi Hier will appreciate it more than most. I had a terrible title for my first award in the media. I received an award called the Silver Angel Award. Now, the problem with receiving a Silver Angel Award is that you don't know who to tell. If I told my wife I was an angel, she'd laugh. She said, "Now I want you to put the cap on the toothpaste when you finish in the morning. I want you to lift up the seat. And please, my angel, take out the bloody garbage." If I told my teenage kids that I was an angel, they would laugh. They thought on most days that I was the devil incarnate. So what do you do when you get a Silver Angel Award? You call your mother. My mother says, "I know you're an angel, now try being a mensch." And in my family, a mensch is something you try to be again and again and again. Because a mensch represents decency, it represents integrity, it represents authenticity, it represents passion, and it represents compassion. And as they give you the Mench Award today, all of those characteristics are representative in what this man, this great leader, and this enormously impactful competitor has accomplished. So thank you very much.
This is the most perfect introduction by my friend Michael. We are going to give you the Mensch Award, Rabbi Hier. And Michael is very, very modest. He received it a few years ago. Not only the Angel Award. I also speak to you as an angel. Ha ha ha. Hold on, Rabbi. I'd like to call up Malka. There is no Mensch without a Mrs. Mensch. And Rebbetzin Malka has been on Rabbi Meyer's right side and left side, depending on where he's standing, for many, many years. And with the bottom of my Hungarian heart, I'd like you to accept this, and Rebbetzin. I think that calls for a speech.
you, Michael, for those beautiful words. And for what you have done to Klal Yisrael, those who don't know what Michael has done, young people here. If we had a couple of dozen people like are sitting here, Klal Yisrael would be in much better shape. First, let me tell you a little bit about my family. I'll tell you one little story, and then we'll go into a short, some remarks. My brother-in-law, Saul Mermelstein. Here's what happened. They were in Hungary, the Nazi period. His mother began screaming at him, Shlomo, don't let the children, they're taking me away. Don't let the little children, keep them. Please save them. Little children were 1.5 years old and 3. And so they took her away. And Shlomo Mermelstein, he said to him, so he saw the Nazis were all over the place. And then he sees they're pointing that there's a doctor. And he makes the decision that a doctor must be a person that would never do harm to little children, 1.5 years old and 3, approaching 3 years old. So he goes over to the doctor and he says, please take care of my brothers and sisters. Take care of them, please. He took them, and of course, unfortunately, he didn't know this. The doctor's name was Joseph Mengele. He immediately took them, and they were gassed. And the rest of his life, he repeats this story 100 times to himself. Did he do the right thing? Could he have done another thing? And that's what happened. Imagine a world where doctors can do such things. And that's what we have to be on guard. So here's a few remarks from me. The great Talmudist, Rabbi Joseph B. Soloveitchik, said that sometimes destiny knocks at the doorstep of the most unwanted people, telling them, this is your time to do the right thing. And so it was. We do not think about this. Most Jews, you never think about what Rav Soloveitchik is now going to say. He says, so it was. Terach, Avram Avinu's father, Vayikach Terach es Avram beno, and Terach took Avram beno, and he took him, Avram Avinu, and he took him to Eretz Canaan. Then Rav Soloveitchik, he says, he had the worst record, Terach. He got a hold of his son and said to himself, this is my moment to finally do something right. So he took his son to the land of Canaan, the land of Eretz Yisrael. If he didn't take him there, there'd be no such thing as Eretz Yisrael. Each of us is given such a moment in history. Now let me tell you something that recently happened. I am a member of the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts and Sciences. I've been a member for 43 years, and I've had the privilege of having 2 Academy Awards. I was so shocked to hear Jonathan Glazer go up to accept his Oscar on the film that he did on the Holocaust. And he said this while tens of millions of people around the world are listening, and deliberately disparages his own people and the Jewish homeland of Eretz Yisrael. desecrating the memory of 6 million Jews, amongst them members of my family, I was not only appalled by Glazer's words, saying this: right now we stand up as men who refute their Jewishness and the Holocaust being hijacked by an occupation which has led to conflict for so many innocent people. But I was further appalled by the silence in reaction to his words. Tens of millions of people were watching. Where was the audience? The people that were sitting in the academy that night. People who should have gotten up and booed him immediately. In front of the world, start booing him. Glazer had a missed opportunity. Instead of using his platform in front of the millions worldwide to stand up with Klal Yisrael and the Jews and the hostages, he blames the Israelis in public, calling them occupiers, and he sympathizes with Hamas. Make no mistake about it, Hamas is nothing less than the Nazis of the 21st century. We shouldn't call them Hamas. We should call them Nazis. Their final objective, just like Hitler's, will be, if they had the chance, their objective would be the total removal of every Jew on this planet. There is no context for burning babies, raping women, killing parents and their children in front of each other and taking hostages. Like the Allies of World War II, we have no alternative but to completely eliminate these terrorists. Let us not forget, and the world has forgotten this, it should be repeated over and over when you meet a person. Tell them this, what I'm telling you now. In the closing days of World War II, this is what happened. United States, France, England, Russia, and Canada, having already devoured Hitler's armed forces, did the following. They destroyed the Berlin railroad system, as well as 12 churches, rendering 450,000 Berliners homeless, tens of thousands dead, because they knew. Why did they do that? You knew it was only a matter of time you win the war. That they were dealing with a leader who would settle for nothing except the total destruction of Western civilization. That is precisely what is happening today with the leaders of Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Iran. We've already paid the supreme price of losing 1/3 of our world population because of the world's failure to respond in time. We will never make that mistake again. As Simon Wiesenthal warned the world, he said it over and over, he lost 89 members of his family, so he has the right to talk. And he said to the world, beware, freedom is not a gift from heaven. It is something we must fight for each and every day. My family and I are deeply honored by this presentation of the Mench Award. A special thanks to you, Stephen Geiger, for his wonderful work, and to the historian, my friend, Michael Birnbaum, and to Dr. Kira Stein and Professor Emeritus Dr. Judea Pearl. Thank you as well to Rabbi Sufrin, the Rosh Yeshiva of Ulaw High School, all the Rabbeim, an institution I had the schus and the privilege to found here in Los Angeles. Thank you very much. Am Yisrael Chai.
I see some of the students have to leave, but others please stay if you can. I'd like to introduce Professor Emeritus of UCLA, Judea Pearl. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I couldn't miss this opportunity when I heard that Rabbi Hier. And where is Rabbi Cooper?
He has to be in Washington.
I thought he was imprisoned in Saudi Arabia. Okay. Because I've known two rabbis for at least 24 years, and they've always been a source of wisdom and help to me and my family. But I would like to award them a special award. I don't have a foundation called the Mensch Foundation, but I can give you my own award, the Magician Award. And the reason is that right next building here, I was witnessing the parting of the Red Sea. That was, I believe, in 2016, when the UAI, that means the United Arab Emirates, delegation came here, and I saw with my own eyes their symphony orchestra playing Hatikva. And I said to it, number one, I said, man, this is not cosmetic, this is real peace. And it turned out to be real peace. And the second thing I said to myself is, man, to convince the conductor to play Hatikva takes a magician. Thank you, Rabbi Hier. I supposed to talk to you about the situation in academia at UCLA, where I've been for 55 years. And academia in general, I've been traveling and talking to many campuses. And some of you students are going to be college students soon, I assume. So let me tell you my perception of what's going on now. It has been in the news. We all know that there is a rising anti-Semitism in colleges. The way I see it is that we are facing now a concerted effort, campaign you might say, or crusade, to erase the presence of Israel from the campus, to treat Zionism, to treat Israelism as a nuclear waste material, extremely toxic and ought to be avoided, but more than avoided is simply erased. Okay. And that shows itself in several ways. I'm going to give you a few examples and then I'll try to analyze the anatomy of the phenomena. So, a few examples. For instance, imagine you're sitting in a music class and the instructor tells you that we are going to analyze the music score of Wonder Woman. And one of the students said, I don't feel comfortable because the actor in that movie is Gal Gadot, and Gal Gadot is Israeli, and I simply feel threatened. Namely, feel threatened by the idea that we are going to analyze the score of the music. So this is one anecdote, not only half the anecdote. The second half is that the professor says, okay, we are going to switch. Namely, we are not going to study the score of Wonder Woman. We are going to study the score of some other movies,
because we are studying music. Yeah, so that is an example of a combination of students feeling comfortable to say, I don't feel safe, and the instructor fear of being blamed or being accused of Islamophobia, and therefore feeling obliged to bend to this hypersensitivity or artificial hypersensitivity of needing safe space. Another example, Tzipi Livni appeared here at UCLA about a month ago, and the threats, some organizations threatened to disrupt the event, and because of that threat of disruption, by the way, it was not a threat of protest, it was a threat to disrupt, okay? And because of that disruption, and the organizer not willing to embarrass Tzipi Livni, they have changed it from in-person event to a virtual event. Okay? And again, bending to a threat of disruption by organization which is identified and could have been disciplined but wasn't. But that's an example of the idea of erase any symbol that reminds you of Israel, especially a symbol of a woman, especially of a successful woman, especially of a symbol that perhaps may arouse sympathy. Erase those symbols from the campus, lest there be sympathy for Israel. Berkeley, about 2 weeks ago, there was a lecture designed to be given by an Israeli attorney named Ran Bar Yehoshaphat. And he was, again, the threat was of disruption, but it wasn't only a threat, it was a real disruption. And dozens of people invaded the lecture room and didn't let him speak, of course, shut him down. And he had to leave the place through an underground tunnel from the lecture hall. Yeah. And again, I don't even think the university apologized for that, but definitely the organization that produced the threats and organized the people and invaded the lecture room was not disciplined. By the way, today a Jewish professor by the name of, I forget the name, Ran was his first name, is doing a sleep-in protest. He's sleeping in his office to Hasna. Thank you. Sleeping in his office to protest the administration handling of the case. I think the least we can expect from the administration is to apologize for not having sufficient security and to re-invite the lecture again under well-organized security. The last an anecdote that I'm going to mention here is a professor from UCLA Medical School, Geffen Medical School, participated in the UCLA delegation of professors to Israel. They took a 2 weeks trip to Israel. She returned, and the student discovered that she has been in Israel. Could you imagine what will happen to you if you take a trip to Israel and you take a photograph, and your students in your class, which has nothing to do with Israel, had to do with medicine, okay, discover your picture in Israel? Of course, the first thing the students do is complain to the dean or the chairman that it doesn't feel safe to be instructed by this lady, by the professor, and second, that they fear that she wouldn't be fair in grading. That's only half of the anecdote. The next goes that the chair calls the professor and tells her to write a letter of apology, not apology, but a letter promising the students that she will be fair in grading. It's a nice ending because she refused to do that unless all professors are instructed to write a letter to the students that they're going to be fair. Okay. Now let's go to the anatomy of the situation and ask ourselves what happened here. First, it didn't start here. It started almost 20 years ago with the BDS. The BDS had the same objective in mind, to defile Israel. Everything connected with Israel, they didn't have the power to erase, but they made sure they vilify. Okay, so they had produced resolution after resolution against Israel under for the purpose of just boycotting Israel. There's nothing wrong with boycott, right? It's just a matter of refusing to buy certain products or refusing to collaborate on that. And the resolution, most of them were turned down, both by the student organization and by the administration. The administration rarely complied with the demands for boycott Israel, even if the resolution was approved. And we thought we are winning. We thought we are winning, and they won, because their purpose was not to boycott. Their purpose was to put Israel on the accused bench and to tell the campus they have done something wrong. So even if the resolution is rejected, they won, because Israel was for 24 hours on the accused bench, and assuming that you are a Korean student who doesn't care from the Middle East, who doesn't care about Israel or anything, you just listen again and again. Israel is accused of doing something wrong, or she must have done something wrong, right? And that created the atmosphere that there is something wrong with Israelism, and that's what brought us to the situation that the mindset of the students and of the professor together have changed, and we have here what we are witnessing today. Now, what have changed in October 7th is not the idea, but the magnitude and the gullibility of our young students, the students that you would expect to exercise some reason, the students who can even prove Pythagoras' theorem or multiply two numbers, and they believe that the Hamas didn't do all these atrocities. They really bring themselves to believe that all this is a production or manufacturing of Israeli Hasbara. That had never seen before. Its ability of reasoned Homo sapiens, okay, to convince themselves that nothing happens on October 7th, and that Israel is a villain, and there's genocide going in Gaza, which, by the way, is very close. The numbers are devastating. We should admit that. But that Israel is guilty. And that is nothing but you can do to talk about in favor of Israel. Okay, I would like to say at the same, to end on a positive note, that there is an awakening on the Jewish community, on the faculty, and is Kira going to speak here? Is Kira?
Yes, after you.
After me, yeah. She's organizing a Jewish community. Yeah. The trouble is that we are dealing with a very slippery administration, and the administration not only does. Yeah.
Just go on speaking. Don't finish. Just start.
I thought I exceeded my time.
Your time is up a long time ago, but it makes no difference. As far as I'm concerned, you can speak for hours, but I think everybody's hungry. They look like they're starving to death.
So there is an awakening among the faculty and among the students, and I believe we are going to win. So that would be my last word.
On top of what Judea said from the UCLA psychiatrist, Kira, come. Thank you, Judea. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Geiger, and thank you, Eula, for having me. Mazel Tov, Rabbi Hier, Hier, on the Mench Award. Cherished students, I wish there were more of you, because this is so important, because you're about to embark upon the next phase of your life, college, and I think that this is a very important time to understand what's going on in secular colleges, because they do affect the world. So I'm standing before you, and I embody dual roles, both as a member of the psychiatric medical school faculty of UCLA and as a mother to 2 Jewish college students. My feelings are a mix of hope and deep concern that is profound and unsettling. In reflecting upon the festival of Purim, just a few days away, and its enduring lessons of resilience and unity, it's impossible not to draw a parallel with the situation we face today. We find the main threat to Jewish existence emanating from Persia, now known as Iran. The modern Iranian regime has repeatedly issued threats against Israel, advocating for its destruction and supporting proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah. And supporters of jihadism lead the anti-Israel and most often anti-Semitic demonstrations at UCLA. These actions and statements echo the historical challenges faced by our ancestors, reminding us of the persistent threats to Jewish security and existence. Today, I've been given the task of addressing the deteriorating campus climate for Jews at UCLA. The tragic events of October 7th left us all, undoubtedly, in a state of emotional shock and distress. However, the ensuing tsunami of worldwide anti-Semitic and anti-Israel demonstrations that ensued compelled me and my colleagues to take action. Echoing the wisdom of Dr. Viktor Frankl in his seminal work, Man's Search for Meaning, even in the grimmest of circumstances, if one can find purpose and meaning, then hope and resilience can also be found. As the world seemed to invert, I found myself motivated by a purpose beyond my clinical practice and educational duties at UCLA, with a newfound determination to tackle anti-Semitism at a campus-wide level. Hence, I turned to my strengths and started a support group. A support group for my UCLA colleagues who were facing an alarming spike in anti-Semitism at UCLA. Thus, the Jewish Faculty Resilience Group was born, affectionately named JFrog. Not because it has anything to do with frogs, nothing to do with Pesach. No, it's just because it's a lot easier to say, JFrog. In our initial gatherings, a group of 20 of us came together to mourn and find solace in one another. By our third meeting, however, our collective resolve had reignited, mirroring the very resurgence of anti-Semitism we aimed to combat. Meeting after meeting, our numbers grew, as did our strength and our resolve. As anti-Semitism intensified at UCLA, the Jewish faculty and staff group, JFrog, transitioned from a mere support organization into an activist coalition of over 120 UCLA faculty and staff, including some non-Jewish allies, dedicated to confronting the growing anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism on campus. I'm sad to say that the situation at UCLA has deteriorated significantly. The Faculty for Justice in Palestine already has dozens of chapters established across the United States, including UCLA. And we know the jihadist community has been working hard over the past 20 years, fomenting a comprehensive and well-funded anti-Semitic, anti-Zionist program dedicated to miseducating the younger generations with the simplistic oppressor-oppressed narrative that distorts Israel, Jewish history, and Jews. Various forms of anti-Semitism have emerged at UCLA, ranging from graffiti and harassment to explicit threats. These actions have fostered a hostile atmosphere to Jewish students and faculty who face bullying and exclusion simply because of their identity. Anti-Semitic content has penetrated academic contexts, with hateful stereotypes being propagated during lectures and academic gatherings. Jews often encounter anti-Semitic propaganda and aggressive activists clad in keffiyehs and masks while navigating campus, compelling them to steer clear of certain campus areas altogether, even though UCLA's rules forbid wearing masks for the purpose of concealing one's identity to intimidate. Recently, as Yuda mentioned, a speech by Tzipi Livni, an Israeli diplomat known for her peace activism and advocacy of a two-state solution, was moved from in-person at the esteemed Royce Hall to Zoom because of threats made by Students for Justice in Palestine that also advocated for the demonstrators to hide their faces under keffiyehs and masks. Campus protests have featured chants like Antifada, from the river to the sea, Israel, Israel, you can't hide, we charge you with genocide, and Itba el Yehud, which translates to slaughter Jews in Arabic. Anti-Semitic activists on campus have hurled insults such as dirty Jew at students wearing kippahs, calling for the annihilation of the Jewish state and its people, attacked a piñata while shouting, beat the effing Jew, and brandishing large dagger-like knives to destroy posters of Israeli hostages. As we all know, throughout history, Jews have been subjected to unfounded accusations and stereotypes. During times of plague, Jews were accused of poisoning the wells or spreading illness. Similar libels are spreading on campus today. In response to an outdoor Shabbat table exhibit at UCLA with empty seats symbolizing the Israeli hostages, one student's social media post warned, "Please be masked and covered if you are taking this exhibit down. Zionist sets have been laced with toxic chemicals. And recently, the UCLA Cultural Affairs Commission even put up a social media post accusing Israel of harvesting Palestinian body parts. The sharp decline in the number of Jews attending both UCLA undergraduate and graduate schools has further marginalized Jews at UCLA, making it easier for anti-Semitism to effectively intimidate and silence them. This paints a devastating picture at UCLA. So, what is the Jewish faculty leadership group doing? What is JFrog doing? Hiding? Burying our faces in the ground? Leaving town? We committed ourselves to galvanize Jewish students, our fellow university faculty members, administrative staff, and the broader community to stand up with pride against anti-Semitism, to advocate fervently for Zionism, and to ensure that Jewish history, culture, and religion are represented genuinely and powerfully. The Jewish faculty at UCLA, through JFrog, have taken a stand, publicly calling the chancellor and the UC system to more vociferously condemn anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, adopt the IRA definition of anti-Semitism, and take practical steps to accurately educate students and staff about Jewish history, Jews, and Israel. We've also been successful at providing professional training for Jewish faculty on effectively addressing anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. We're still working at it, but we've started that. Along with rigorous monitoring of anti-Semitic incidents on campus. We've collaborated with organizations such as the ADL, Stand With Us, Hillel, Chabad, to strengthen our network and impact. Furthermore, to counter Hamas atrocity denial across UCLA and educate the English-speaking world about the trauma of October 7th and after, and the resilience, diversity, and equity of Israeli society, we organized a faculty trip to Israel, which already happened, and are now producing a documentary, bearing witness. We will be marching to the UC Regents meeting tomorrow morning to present public statements, share our experiences, and make our case for stronger, more decisive action by the University of California. It will be dangerous, as the opposition is well organized, funded, and already agitating. And thus we've asked for and hope we get security. With all our efforts thus far, we have found the UCLA administration's response to anti-Semitism to be tepid at best. Even though there have been clear violations of the university's code of conduct, the university has been reluctant to take decisive action against those who perpetrate anti-Semitism. For example, not enforcing their own demasking rules around campus takes them off the hook of having to deal with or discipline the perpetrators of anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist behavior. This lack of response has only emboldened those who seek to intimidate the Jewish community, leaving Jews feeling unprotected and marginalized. So, where are we at now? The situation we're facing is increasingly concerning, with anti-Semitism on the rise at UCLA. Furthermore, the capacity of the Jewish community organizations is stretched very thin, leaving them unable to respond promptly enough to the numerous instances that emerge daily at UCLA. As a result, we find ourselves shouldering the responsibility, and time is not on our side. Our organization, JFrog, is witnessing significant growth and influence as an active grassroots volunteer body. However, this expansion brings its challenges. Many of our faculty members are already committed to full-time employment, and the rapid escalation of anti-Semitic incidents means we're struggling to keep pace without additional or sufficient support. To continue our journey towards effective growth and to successfully counter each act of anti-Semitism, it's become clear that hiring staff to execute our projects is imperative. This will ensure we maintain our momentum and achieve our goals. But to do so, we require urgent community support and assistance. So, to do this, we need you. The severity of these incidents and the strength of the Faculty for Justice in Palestine require an equally forceful response from the broader Jewish community, at least an equally forceful response. Yet, despite all the publicity of congressional hearings and insipid, vitriolic, venomous, anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist protests and activity on college campuses, Jewish faculty and students on campuses like UCLA are not receiving the community support necessary to fight the battles that need to be fought to keep anti-Semitism from overflowing from the campus onto our communities. If you think Jews are the canaries of the world, then understand me now. Jews on campus are the canaries of the wider Jewish community. So here is the good news. And that brings us back to Purim, a time when we celebrate Jewish survival against seemingly insurmountable odds. It's not just a story of the past, but a reminder that when we stand together, support one another, and face our challenges head on, we can overcome anything. We've done it before, and we can do it again. We just have to shift gears. It's not business as usual anymore. The resilience of Esther and Mordechai, their courage to stand up against Haman, and his supporters, is the resilience we need to embody today. There is a pivotal moment in the Purim story where Esther grapples with the life-threatening risk of approaching King Ahasuerus without being summoned in order to advocate for the defense of the Jewish people. Esther's initial hesitation is met with Mordechai's compelling response. Do not imagine in your heart that you, of all Jews, will escape because you are in the king's palace. For if you insist on remaining silent at this time, relief and deliverance will come to the Jews from elsewhere. But you, Esther, and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether it was not for such a time as this, that you came into royalty. Each of us, regardless of our station in life, may be uniquely positioned to make a difference in the face of adversity. Esther's story encourages us not to underestimate our potential to effect change, reminding us that perhaps we are in our respective positions for such a time as this. We each have a role to play. So, I ask you, what's your role? Am Yisrael Chai.
Dear Stephen Geiger, Michael Barenbaum, Rabbi Marvin Hier, Dr. Kira Stein, and Professor Emeritus Dr. Judo Pearl, I'm honored to stand here today with you on this important occasion, and I would like to thank you for the opportunity of being able to speak at this event. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, my name is Imola Szabó, and I'm the Deputy Consul General of Hungary in Los Angeles. To be honest, it is not easy to speak here today, and not just because I'm the last one and everybody is hungry, but because we are not here to celebrate one of Hungary's glorious historical events. The reason we are gathered here is to remember the dark day of March 19, 1944, when the Hungarian Holocaust began. Today is an anniversary that is neither a cause for pride nor for joy. It reminds us of horror and suffering, of heroic deeds scattered with the inexplicable. An entry in the encyclopedia can at the most teach our children that the Holocaust is the tragedy of 6 million European Jews. Therefore, it is our duty to teach them that the Holocaust is not only the tragedy of the 6 million men, women, and children. It is the tragedy of all of mankind. It is a universal lesson. Murder, and especially genocide, is the violation of the right to human existence and the infringement of the duties implied by human existence. It is, in fact, the betrayal of the Creator. And apart from its universality, the Holocaust, for us Hungarians, is also our national tragedy, twice so. On one hand, because every 10th victim of the Holocaust every 10th victims of the Holocaust and every third victim of the camps of Auschwitz-Birkenau were Hungarian citizens. And on the other hand, because not only many of the victims, but also many of the perpetrators were Hungarian. The Hungarian government is clear about the responsibility of the Hungarian state. It is a fact that from 1930s onwards, the period of the rise of anti-Semitism reached Hungary and the Hungarian society, which also took shape in the intolerable and shameful restriction of the rights of the Hungarian Jews. Just as it is a fact that the mass deportation of Hungarian Jews from all over the country to the death camps took place after the German invasion on March 19, 1944. And it is also a fact that the organized and mass deportation of the Hungarian Jews could not have taken place without the active participation of the Hungarian administration. The Hungarian state bears responsibility not only for failing to protect its own citizens, but also for many of its employees who, by word, deed, or omission, became accomplices in the deportation of our fellow Jew. We know that facing the truth is a painful and long process that is fraught with controversy. Perhaps, by definition, this can never fully come to an end. Embarking on this road is a cumbersome process, but the only one that can lead us to a world in which Auschwitz can never happen again, never again. Facing the past, therefore, means that we make it a moral law to perform remembrance and put a ban on forgetting. Hungary, this post-Holocaust European country, has learned the historical lesson and will not let anyone forget it. We gathered today to remember those who perished. We gathered today to reflect upon what could have been. Most important of all, we gather today so that we can learn. We will not forget those who perpetrate these terrible crimes, names infamous today, such as Hitler and Mengele, the Nazis and the Arrow Cross. And we will never forget the heroes, Karl Lutz, Roel Wallenberg and Hanna Senes. And we will not forget what happens when we allow ourselves to become bystanders, defend by silence, complicit by inaction. So, while part of this event is commemoration, remembering and educating, part of it is an act of rededication. Rededicating ourselves to summon the strength to engage those with whom we disagree, and standing up to those who target the vulnerable, to those who use hate opportunistically, to those who use the sacred individuality of each of us to divine, marginalize, and dehumanize. Rededicating ourselves to take steps together to ensure that we individually and collectively, as communities and as nations never allow this happen again, in Hungary, next door, anywhere. This effort to remember, to memorialize, and to speak the truth of what happened honestly and openly must never stop. Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, one of our greatest Hungarian poets, Attila József, wrote a famous piece of verse about the Danube, Europe's greatest river, which is also a symbol of Hungarian history. 80 years ago, this river was the watery grave of many of our compatriots. Only their lonely shoes remained after the Hungarians who were shot and pushed into the river, the bronze replicas of which can still be seen on the vast embankment of the Danube today. This is the last verse from this great poem, and please allow me to finish my speech by quoting it to you. It's hard for human nature to make a true confession of the past. The Danube, which is past, present, and future, entwines its waves in tender, friendly claps. Out of the blood our fathers shed in battles flows peace through our remembrance and regard, creating order in our common matters. This is our task. We know it will be hard. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Szabó, for your profound words and for the words of the government of Hungary. And we at Mensch Foundation ask that starting this next year to celebrate, or at least to remember the 80th year, we would like to take every high school student at least one time to Mauthausen or to Dachau or to Auschwitz, and we'd need the assistance of the Hungarian government to implement this into the educational system. And I hope we have your help. And thank you very much for being here today. As they say in Hungarian, servus. Rabbi Hier, Rabbi Hier, we are friends, but more than friends, I have the utmost respect for who you are and what you have done, you together with your wife, all these years. And to express my gratitude, as did Michael Barenbaum, my good friend and an advisor to the Mensch Foundation. Thank you for coming and accepting the Mensch Award. And as they say in French, seid gesund.